Welcome to the Consulting Specifying Engineer webcast, the 60-minute MBA for engineers, sponsored by BQE Software. I'm your moderator, Tyler Wall, and I'm happy to join you today on behalf of Consulting Specifying Engineering and CFU Media and Technology. Here are some tips and tricks to get the most from today's webcast. If you're experiencing issues with your slides or audio, refresh your browser or click the Refresh Media button directly under the presenter's picture. If you can control the volume of this webcast by adjusting the volume on your own computer or by adjusting the volume on the webcast platform. If you're having technical problems with audio or the slide presentation, click the question mark at the top right corner of your screen to access a list of system checks to try. If you do need a technician, type a message in the Ask a Question box and the tech team will get to you as quickly as possible. Individual user experience questions will be answered in the Answered Questions box. Type questions for the speaker in the Ask a Question box on the left side of your screen. The live Q&A session will start in about 45 minutes. Today's webcast is being recorded, and you will receive an email within a week with the link to the on-demand event. To download a certificate of completion and a PDF copy of the presentation, use the Event Resources tab on the left side of your screen. Those documents will be available with the on-demand version of the webcast. I am happy to introduce today's presenter, Stephen Burns. Stephen Burns, FAIA, is the Chief Creative Officer of BQE Software. Stephen received his Master's of Architecture degree from the Harvard Graduate School of Design, spent 7 years at SOM, and founded his own architecture firm before pursuing his passion for business management software. In 2009, he created Archie Office, which he later sold to BQE Software. Steve is now focused on the product development of BQE Core and is a global speaker on topics related to firm management and emerging technologies. Thank you for joining us today, Steve. Let's begin.
Okay, well, thank you, Tyler, for that introduction. And hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me today in what will most certainly be a fire hose of information. So over the last dozen years, I have been conducting these monthly webinars for the AE industry on pretty much every topic that is related to business and project management. And just like today, every webinar is followed by a question and answer session. And after each webinar, we collect all the questions so I can prepare a more thoughtful written response and have that document sent out to all attendees. And recently, a new member of our team had been looking through this kind of encyclopedia of questions and answers. And she suggested that I attempt to bring as much of what firm owners, administrators, managers have been asking about into a single 60-minute webinar. Now, I do know that is a pretty incredible challenge. I know I am not going to fulfill this ambition to everybody's satisfaction. But if you make it through what we covered today, I'm pretty sure you're going to be able to approach your firm with a fresh attitude that's going to make for an exciting year of change and growth in 2023. So let's go ahead and start. We're going to have about, I think, 4 poll questions to ask you today. And so this first poll question is, what would you consider to be the single greatest benefit of owning your very own firm? Is it that you'll have more control over how your firm is run? It's the potential maybe to earn more money? Is it the ability to be more creative and innovative? Maybe you were being stifled at your prior place of employment. Or is it maybe the ability to choose the kinds of clients and projects you work on and in fact have direct access with those clients? So let's all get warmed up with answering poll questions as quickly as possible. And then we will go ahead. Emily, when the results start to slow down, let's go ahead because I have a lot to cover today, as I mentioned, and the sooner we get to that, the better. So just so you know, as I see these results coming in, most of you are just more control over how a firm is run, followed by just the ability to choose the kinds of clients and projects that you work on. The least popular one is being the ability to be more creative and innovative. So why don't you go ahead and let's just share those results right now, Emily, and then I'm going to move back to my slides and get on to the next one. So thank you for answering that. It's always fun to see what the group is thinking about today. Now, so for anybody who has ever attended business school, this slide would be really unnecessary. It's sort of like telling someone who attended architecture school they need to kind of combine some critical thinking and creativity, or as many of you here today are engineers, to say you need to apply an analytical and deductive mindset to your work. These kind of are the things that should go without saying. But to tell members of the AE industry that they need to have a business thinking mindset, it is essential. It's something that was really never addressed in school, but it is fundamental to anybody who is venturing into business. So you might think I'm talking about some classic business skills like accounting, market analysis, strategic planning, and I have done webinars on all of those topics, but they are really just the tip of the iceberg. These are the kinds of skills that would ensure your firm has at least a pulse, but let's not confuse having a beating heart with having an active, vibrant, and a fulfilling firm. You really ought to aspire to more than just having, let's call it, the minimally viable business. Now, I personally believe architects and engineers are very well suited to have this business thinking mindset, because you need to be able to analyze situations and data, think critically and creatively about how to solve those problems and how it could achieve success. This pretty much sounds like what you do every single day. It's what we do to help our clients with their projects. So a business thinking mindset, it is an essential trait for anybody who wants to succeed in their business. So part of what you need to do is understand kind of backwards and forwards all of the structures, all the systems that exist within your very own firm. Business thinking introduces sort of what we call a systemic approach to understanding your organization, how leadership manifests itself, what is defining the culture of your firm, and how change can happen. When firm leaders exhibit business thinking, they are actually able to construct some new patterns of trust, builds confidence in themselves and their employees, and it empowers pretty much everybody inside of the firm. You also must possess the clarity necessary to recognize when opportunities present themselves and appreciate the consequences, and then take on the risks by making what can often be very difficult and unpopular decisions. And when all members of your firm's leadership have this business thinking mindset, your company is going to be able to develop the kind of competitive advantages that will differentiate you from your competition and propel you to success. And by the way, if you can extend this by transforming the entire culture of every single employee so that they can appreciate they are all part of a team that is in business together, you can have business thinking permeating your firm on a day-to-day basis. And that means the status quo is never deemed acceptable. Every member of a firm can contribute to pushing that bar higher and higher infinitely. And if you are the type of firm that likes to look at every project as an opportunity to push the design envelope, you are very well suited to applying those same skills. Just focus them inward, looking at everything within your firm as an opportunity to push against the status quo, to be the best business you can be. So I created this looping diagram to explain the process that firms have to utilize when they deploy this business thinking mindset. And I call it the business thinking cycle. And it's really the circulation system for your firm, as it must be flowing continuously in order to be vibrant and to sustain growth. And I'm talking about growth because I know a lot of you are really maybe not interested in the straight definition of growth. So there are really three kinds of organs that are driving this system. They are understanding, reflecting, and reimagining. So this in itself is a full day topic. But for now, to achieve a business thinking mindset, let's just say you're going to start by understanding people. That includes your employees, your clients, your consultants, and even prospects. Observe all the kinds of various types of human behaviors that they exhibit. Identify and understand the purpose and the processes for all of your existing systems. Why do they exist? Who created them? Why are they there? Why are we not challenging them? Examine your current skill sets and think about or identify the kinds of skills that might be attainable. Assess your existing business model and relate it back to the current business environment and the one for which it was originally constructed. And then kind of scrutinize all your business plans and your strategic plans. And while doing this, it's actually imperative that you consider how they manifest, how all of these things manifest within the three different scales that are really inherent in every firm. That's at the organizational level or the company level, at the team level, and that's kind of assuming your firm is organized into teams. And for some smaller firms, they don't really formalize it, but whenever you work on a project, you might have a team of people working together on a project. And then at the level of every individual employee, how are they going to be impacted by all of this? And the next step is the fun part. It's really just to think. For most of us, we've experienced how some of our most creative ideas come when we're taking a shower, or maybe you're just relaxing on the beach. Relaxing is the key to making these creative ideas flow. But that's actually what you just need to do as a business owner. Now, provided there isn't a water shortage, and here in California, we now, for the past 2 weeks, have fixed that problem. Take a good long shower and reflect on all that you've just been learning about your business in the understanding section. So what we're really talking about here, and I can speak from personal experience on this, is as an architect, when I was given a project, I would think about it all the time. I'd go to sleep at night, I'd be imagining some designs, I'd be sitting at dinner and kind of daydreaming about the project while everybody else around the table, was talking about a football game. But that's what you need to do. But instead of applying all of that thinking to your clients' projects, you just turn it inward. Direct that talent that you have to your firm. So you get to be daring, you get to do things that are different, and you get to be creative for your very own firm. And lastly, after all of that creative thinking, you can begin to introduce the new structures, those new processes, those new tools and methodologies, and some new practices to deliver what the ever-evolving market is like thinking about. So this process, it really just doesn't end at that implementation stage of this new vision. You have to continually revisit this cycle. And your firm, in my estimation, if you could just reframe your thinking, it is the best project ever. You never have to worry about it being built in concrete or steel and then having to do some expensive changes. You get to constantly iterate very easily to change as new opportunities arise. So this was borne out by the survey earlier, but let's be honest, we did not get into this business for the money. We really love what we do. And I know too many architects who would work for free, some of them do, just for the pleasure of designing a project. So I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but passion just isn't enough. Yes, it will also take very hard work, and that isn't difficult for people who have kind of perfected the all-nighter. So what you need is you need to find passion in every facet of your business. Now, I do know personally many architects who have committed themselves to diving deep into so many facets within the AEC space. It could be materials science, means and methods of construction, zoning and code analysis, CAD BIM super user skills, specifications, color theory, you name it. But if you ask them to learn something new about how accounting could improve their firm's metrics or any of the KPIs, I'll refer to the term KPI a lot, which is key performance indicators, any of the KPIs that I often discuss during my webinars, they can sometimes yawn, Maybe I'm going to talk about how to create a business plan or build a strategic plan. And I get these sort of like doe-eyed looks like, that's nice, Steve. Can I just get back to designing my project now? All we need is to have satisfied clients by designing great projects. So knowing as much as you can about business will make your firm better, just as the more you know about materials and construction is going to make you a better engineer or architect, and it's going to bring greater value to those projects. So you can't just be a good designer and expect that by extension, that's going to make you into a great architect or engineer. You need to become a master of your craft. And the same is true of your business. You can't be a good designer and expect that that's going to lead to having a strong, successful firm. There is so much more you need to master before that's ever going to happen. Okay. So we're going to move, Emily, to poll question number 2, which is, what do you think should be the single highest priority for a firm owner? And I know you're all going to say all of these are priorities, and they are all priorities. I just want to test the waters here and find out from you, what is the single greatest priority? Is it, business development, which is finding new clients, new opportunities for your firm, maintaining some good relationships with those clients? It's going to involve, networking and marketing. Is it financial management, which is managing the financial health of the firm, setting budgets, tracking expenses, and ensuring the firm is profitable? Is it, for lack of a better word, talent management, sort of attracting, retaining, and developing talented professionals for your firm? And that could include creating the kinds of opportunities for professional development and mentorship, and also just creating a really positive and supportive work environment. Is it quality control, which by that I mean it's ensuring that the firm is consistently delivering high quality work to the clients, meeting the relevant regulations and standards, adhering to the best practices in the industry, and keeping litigation not in your door. Last one was innovation, which seemed to be the lowest response rate for why one would have a firm, which is encouraging creativity and innovation within the firm, being open to trying some new approaches and technologies that could enhance your firm's capabilities and competitiveness. So I've talked through and rambled for enough time that I could see, and hopefully the results are being shared, that most of you, it's basically the business development and client relationships. This is fantastic that many of you appreciate that. Financial management seems to be like fourth down on the list. Next comes really dealing with the employees and the talent that you have. So terrific. I hope hopefully those results were sent off to you so you could see that. And with that, appreciate your honest responses there. Let's move on. I want to close out this little section with one of the most important and overlooked components of having a business. A business is really about value creation. And as a professional, we are very good at providing our clients with value. So if you are an architect, most typically that value is manifest in a building, or better yet, architects like to think of a great work of architecture. In the end, you are most likely paid nominal fees for those services, but your client is left with the product, which will most likely increase in value at an extraordinary rate, while you're going to have to just move on to the next service project. As a business, you should be discovering what people need or want and create value in your firm as the means of delivering what that market needs. Your firm is in many ways no different to you than that building was to your client. And when you understand this, you will want to build the greatest firm that reflects who you are and what you aspire to. Now, this is a silly slide. I apologize for it, but whether you are a sole proprietor, if you're a firm with multiple offices, or you're global, there's actually 5 kinds of givens that I'm just looking at it, not for like what you should do to be good at business, but these are the 5 givens of ways to be bad at business. And I thought it would be fun to kind of just share this with you. So the first one is, if your firm isn't creating value for a client, it's really a hobby for you. And if your firm is not attracting attention, we can call that a flop. If your firm doesn't sell the value that it created. It's kind of like a nonprofit. If your firm isn't delivering what you promised to your clients, it's a scam. And if your firm doesn't bring in enough money to keep operating, it's inevitably going to close. So if you have, in fact, created this valuable firm in your estimation, you really need to focus on marketing. And for some firms, this just seems a little distasteful. Like, isn't it enough to be great or maybe just to be doing great work? No. You need to attract attention and you need to build demand for this amazing firm that you have created. After all, you are in a market that is overflowing with incredible talent. You need to get over your pride that if you just do great work, future work is going to follow. You must get serious about marketing your firm. Most firms think that if they are busy, maybe they're even turning down some work, that they actually don't need to waste their time and their resources. And by resources, I mean not just people, but money, doing any marketing. And for the rare few, that might be true. But history has shown us that at some point, work will slow down. Maybe there's a change in the economy, as we're all sensing right now, or maybe it's just changing in taste and style and how you fit inside of that. But you never want to be in the position of marketing your services while your firm is hungry. Think about this. Studies show that you shouldn't go to the grocery store when you're hungry because you're going to end up spending a lot more money than you need, and you're going to be buying a lot of unhealthy food. So you shouldn't go out looking for work when you're hungry either. That's my favorite slide. So let's assume you have created this amazing firm. You have figured out what the market needs. Your marketing investment has paid off. Prospects are knocking on your door. And then kind of converting those prospects into paying, loyal, enthusiastic clients is actually the job of sales. And some firms think, I've got to be like a used car salesman. Like, all we got to do is get you behind the wheel of one of these beauties. And that's not you. No, you're not a used car salesman. You're not like, it's Harry Wormwood, wearing the fat tie and the fake gold watch, a tweed jacket that defies description, and what is clearly a pork pie hat that he took out of Dean Martin's golf bag. You are a bona fide, certified, award-winning professional, and you and your team are incredible. And anybody who just happens to walk into your firm should be grateful you are even considering, applying your talents towards one of their projects. So this is kind of like my attempt at trying to bring a little bit of levity into a discussion about explaining how a firm owner is actually a professional salesperson. And from the previous survey, most of you, the majority of you, understood that the number one priority of owning a firm is really what comes down to the sales, to the clients, to getting those clients in the door. Now, I do know sales is considered to be a pejorative in the minds of skilled professionals. Your excellent work really ought to stand for itself, and having to kind of stoop to being a salesperson is beneath your lofty stature. But I really want to try and reorient your thinking here. And now, at its most basic, sales is really about building loyalty and trust between you, your firm, and that client. These two things cause your clients to recommend your firm to others and to return with more work. Loyalty and trust. Notice I didn't say a beautiful building delivered on budget and on schedule. That's going to create a loyal client. Most professional service firms sell their loyalty and their trust through the principal or the partner. So every conversation, every phone call, any email, whatever that communication is, from a firm owner to a prospect or a client, has to be considered a sales communication. And every interaction with your client or your prospect should leave them with the proper impression that you are a trusted advisor. Okay, so one of the interesting things about being in sales is you can provide value before your client even realizes it. And when we speak about value-based sales, which is a term that hopefully most of you become familiar with over the past decade. That means you are laser focused on the needs of your client. And when you take the approach of a consultant providing value to a client or a prospect, you're going to find that their decisions are going to be based on your potential value. Okay? Being able to demonstrate value to your client is what they need to see. It's not about you, your design skills, your team, the incredibly efficient processes that you've devised over the decades building your firm. They have to see what it all means to them. After all, they can all just walk down the street, find another firm, frankly, with similarly skilled professionals and who probably thinks that they're better than you anyway. Assuming that they aren't bargain shopping, what do you actually think makes the difference in their minds? And I'm going to just share with you a very short personal story. We actually won a client that came to our firm to help them with the creation of a new building. It was a pretty sexy proposition. Any architect would have loved to take this on. Based on the findings from a real estate consultant that they had hired in advance, they were convinced that their current facility was incapable of servicing their needs into the future. Now, after a little bit of analysis, we were able to demonstrate how they could save a little bit more than $2 million in construction and carrying costs, as well as through some tax abatements, by investing, renovating, and adding to their existing facility. And on top of that, we explained how that approach would not only save them money, but be far more valuable in the eyes of the public and their customers. And this is where the needs of the client come ahead of the aspirations of the professional. This is how one becomes a trusted advisor. After that meeting, we had earned their trust and a contract was signed. And when we asked them why they chose our firm, they referred to the fact that we were the only ones who challenged the assumption that they needed a new headquarters. That we were more interested in their needs than what the project would mean to our firm's portfolio. And on top of this, by the way, our fees were almost not even a consideration in our contract negotiation because they had already won. They were saving a couple of $1 million and the project hadn't even begun. And that's just an example or one example of what value-based sales is all about. So if you expect to win against your competitors, the place to start is by looking beyond the words that are written on an RFP, a request for proposal. You need to do your homework. You need to learn as much as you can about your prospect. Your focus is going to be, and this is interesting, it's going to be on teaching, not selling. So you imagine that. Sales isn't actually about selling anything. It's about teaching. Every interaction has to add value. Or another way to say this is any interaction that isn't adding value in the eyes of your client or the prospect, it's going to create a larger gap that makes building the bridge between you two a little bit harder. Now, I looked at this not too long ago. It's a very interesting statistic. About 97% of all law graduates, they are employed, but only 51% of them are working in a law firm. So this profession of law, it's really like architecture and engineering. It requires an incredible amount of education and serious barriers to licensure. And the reason I'm bringing this up is highly trained professionals in law, they realize that their skills are extremely valuable outside of the traditional practice. For some reason, AE professionals have a very narrow focus on what their amazing skills can be applied to. Now, I am not saying that you should be like me and find an alternative career. I'm simply suggesting that you possess some very formidable skills that can solve the problems of a lot of prospective clients, not just those who are looking for traditional services. After all, most clients actually don't even understand what architects and engineers are doing. So if you are one of those firms that use the list of services as provided by the AIA, so I know a lot of architectural firms do use this document to explain to their prospective clients, what can they do for them? So if you're using this to help your future client understand your value, you are actually missing out on being able to differentiate yourself from your competitor? I mean, what do you think they're also providing, that same menu? If any of you have worked with clients that are creating, let's say a restaurant, you're going to understand what I'm talking about. What differentiates one great restaurant from another? So you could say, well, it's the amazing chef, or it's the beautiful ambiance that the design team created. But great food and great design alone are not the keys to a successful restaurant. And just like that list of standard services that you're providing your client, they're probably more interested in things that are not on the menu. By the way, this is another really interesting facet of having this business thinking mindset. It's understand the problems that your clients and your prospects have, and make sure that they see that you are part of that solution. This is how you solidify yourself as a true long-term asset. So it is now time to talk about the money. And I know this is a difficult topic for certain professionals. It's like the dirty little secret that we know is kind of happening, but it's impolite to speak about. So let's put that business thinking cap on, and we're going to discuss why money is so important, why it should be on your mind every day. So money is really like oxygen. We really don't think about it as we go about our day-to-day business. It's always sort of around us and we take it for granted. But if any of you have ever been in a crisis where you're deprived of oxygen, maybe you're choking on food, or maybe you're scuba diving and you're running low on gas, you kind of know what this does to your psyche. It is very, very hard to remain calm and think clearly and act wisely when you are deprived of oxygen. Well, when your firm is deprived of money, some really bad things will happen. So let's discuss profit. When your firm is profitable, now you will have the ability to grow. Now, I know most of you are thinking that you are not interested in growth. You have a small firm, you are keeping it small purposely, you enjoy your lifestyle, and kind of growing your firm is going to change that. You have no interest in that. So I really understand that kind of mindset. Much of our profession is inhabited by small firms, which exist to serve the life goals of the principal of that firm, or maybe there's a small group of owners. Maybe you have 3 people. Maybe it's 15 people in your office, and you don't ever intend to become a firm of 50 people. That is absolutely fine. I am not suggesting that growth means you literally have to grow your firm. And by the way, growth can be manifest in one of really 2 ways. There's organic growth, and then there is something called strategic growth. They're very 2 different approaches to how a business will continue to thrive. So organic growth, this is typically, maybe it's increasing the size or the scope of your business through some internal means. It's the type of growth that is pretty slow. It's more gradual, much more gradual than strategic growth, but it's also going to be more sustainable over the long term. And when we speak of organic growth, what we're really talking about is this can happen without the need for outside financing, for taking on some debt. You're generally able to achieve your organic growth through your own profits. And here's a couple of examples of what organic growth might look like for perhaps like a firm like yours. So first is, maybe you want to increase the number of clients through word of mouth referrals, or actively seeking out new clients through some networking and marketing efforts. Maybe it's about expanding the range of services that are offered by your firm. Maybe adding some new areas of expertise, or offering some maybe additional kinds of design services. Hiring additional staff or contractors who might be needed to meet the increased demand for the firm's services. It could be investing in marketing and branding efforts, which will increase your firm's reputation and the visibility within the industry and amongst your prospects. Could be just diversifying your firm's project portfolio. Maybe you want to take on some new types of projects or work on within a new geographic region. It could be developing some new technologies, or maybe some new processes to improve your firm's efficiency and your productivity. It could be expanding the firm's physical address, your physical, footprint, get a, additional office space. But all of this is being paid for by having serious profits, and to have an abundance of oxygen that you can afford to take on any dream that you might have. And again, for those of you who are satisfied with the size and your culture and you have no interest in some of these kinds of growth opportunities, just recognize that increasing your profitability enables you to pay higher salaries and attract greater talent. It allows you to be more selective in the kinds of projects you take on. So finally, you do have the power, and money is behind that power, to pick and choose the clients and project types that will fulfill your strategic goals and your personal life goals. So no matter what you want to do with your firm, growing the bucket of money that flows into it will make whatever good things you want to have happen. So strategic growth is more rapid than organic growth, but it also will carry more risk and it will require more planning and more resources. And here's a couple of examples of strategic growth within our industry. Some of these will be repetition, but acquiring or merging with another firm to expand your company's capabilities or reach. Maybe it's just partnering with another firm or a professional to gain access to new markets or new opportunities, or even just some new resources. It could be diversifying your portfolio, taking on new types of projects, or working again in new geographic regions. So strategic growth, it's typically driven by a very specific plan or a strategy that is designed to help the firm achieve long-term goals, long-term objectives, and it typically involves making strategic investments. Now, that could be satisfied by your profits, which may have been invested over some years, which, by the way, is very rare in our industry. Most owners take much of the profits home at the end of the year. But it might require your firm to take on some debt, which becomes less of a burden, even with our interest rates today are hovering near 9%, as long as your profits are sustained so that oxygen is flowing freely. Okay, so we have our penultimate poll question here. So we can go ahead and launch that, Emily, here. So I'd like to know, how would you describe the software that your firm uses to manage your business and your projects? So you can clearly see I'm taking a little pivot here because I'm going to be talking about technology now. So either you could say we have a state-of-the-art system that is implemented in our firm. Our system is dated and it's hard to use. We do have management software, but we don't like it and we don't use it. Maybe we just use spreadsheets or kind of like other disconnected kinds of tools. We call them one-trick ponies here. Or we don't use any management software. We just get the work in the door and our people go about doing it. So let's see what you all have to say. We'll give that a few more seconds. This is not rare. I speak to thousands upon thousands of firm owners in the AE industry every single year. And what you're all telling me right now is you're using spreadsheets or other similar disconnected tools. So let's just go ahead and Emily, if you can just publish that, send that to the audience. I'm going to move on to my next slide here. Good. So this one's good for engineering group. So what are kind of like the best practices? I'm going to go back to this one first. Okay, Galileo. Now, Galileo said, mathematics is the language in which God has written the universe. And fortunately, for those of us who aren't so mathematically inclined, if you are in business, you may not need to know the math since we have technology that makes that easy, but you must know the numbers. This is how business speaks to us. It speaks to us through metrics. It speaks to us through measurement. And we've all heard the saying, you can't manage what you can't measure. Or another way to twist that is, if you even measure it, what gets measured gets managed. But there's actually an entire school of debate over this concept. But I will let you know that you should not be making decisions based on your gut alone. If I were to ask you, how do you develop the hourly bill rate for your employees, assuming that there are times when they might bill on an hourly basis, I know the overwhelming majority will say they pick these rates by knowing what other firms charge for people with similar skills or similar experience. So you're really no different than a retailer who's matching the price of a competitor. rather than charging what you believe is appropriate for the value you bring, or charging at least an hourly rate that is calculated based on your actual cost and allows for a reasonable markup for profit. KPIs, key performance indicators, will actually provide the business intelligence as to what the hourly rate should be based on reality, based on quantifiable data. Engineers should be eating this up. Next, if I asked you, do you know the margin between what any particular employee costs you and what they earned for you? Would you know that answer, or would you even care? Now, if you say no to the first question, which is you don't know what it is, you're probably in the 75th percentile of your peers. And if you reply no to the second question, which was, do you even care to know these things? You don't really care. You are actually in the wrong webinar. So if all you knew was the true cost of every hour for every employee and the true revenue derived from every hour of every employee, you would have incredible power. Now, there is a common phrase that knowledge is power. Frankly, knowledge in itself is just knowledge. Having the ability to act on knowledge, that is where your real power will come into effect. When you know the numbers behind every facet of your business, that is when you have the ability to wield power, to exploit what is working and change what isn't, and not tell people that it's your gut telling you to do something, but point back at data, which is telling you this is the road to success here. So KPIs give you the intelligence to make smarter business decisions. Okay. So I just wanted to get into this slide, which was kind of like, what are the best practices for implementing a metrics-oriented leadership system within your firm? And it really comes as no surprise, to me at least, that most firms proudly proclaim that their employees are their greatest asset. After all, these are typically highly educated individuals who've spent years honing their skills, and as most of you recognize, are undercompensated for their skills and their talents. The most successful firms invest a lot of time and money into the continuing education of their team members. A lot of the finest firms have a very intensive hiring and onboarding process that ensures every new employee not only has the skills and the talent that are required, but that they're going to fit into the culture. So to make that transition very easy, it's going to be value to the entire team and increase the probability that employee will stay for the long term. Your technology is really just like another employee. It certainly requires the same kind of investment and care on the part of the firm's leadership. Now, most of you have done an exceptionally good job with your due diligence in researching your CAD or your BIM solutions that are all, the ones that are out in the market. And then you find the tool that works best for your needs. And you invest most likely in training your staff so that they understand how to exploit those tools and make the most of your investment. Now, the assumption is that when people are properly trained to use the software, it's going to make them more productive. It's going to yield a better product. It's going to make everybody's, from the employee to the consultants, even to your clients, they're all going to be happier. But this is no less true when it comes to finding the best tools to help your firm operate. And when I speak about operations, I mean everything from the banal yet important tasks like time and expense tracking, project scheduling, project budgeting, resource allocation, invoicing, accounting, human resources, and CRM. The tools that you use to run your business, like those that you use with your CAD and BIM to design and prepare your deliverables, they improve your efficiency. They provide structure and consistency. They reduce risk. They simplify management. They create a more satisfying culture. And they actually free you from repetitive, mundane tasks that so many firms suffer from when they deal with, back office responsibilities. And for what seems to be the majority of you here, working with spreadsheets. Now, there's a term that larger firms are familiar with. Smaller firms kind of shy away from it. It's called enterprise resource planning, or ERP. And I very often get questions from smaller firms about the necessity to implement an ERP system in their little office. it seems like maybe that's like a rocket ship and all they need is a little electric buggy to get them to the grocery store and back. My response is that whether you refer to it as ERP or project management software or business software, it's not the issue. The real question is, what can that tool do for your firm? Will it make your job easier? Will it make the firm more money? And it's as simple as that. Most of you here today are using some incredibly sophisticated BIM software. I'll even bet that many of you are only using a fraction of its potential. But the point is, you are using it to some degree because you know it brings value. The sole proprietor firm attending today are using a lot of the same CAD and BIM software tools that the largest firms in the world use. And that's because technology is the great leveler. So just like you've invested in CAD and BIM software, your firm needs to invest in some systems that collect, manage, and interpret data from all of your business activities. The structure it provides, the consistency of workflow, the ability to report out in real time any performance metric that your firm considers important. These are benefits that will transcend the size of your firm. So my bottom line wish here is, please invest and train in your business and your deliverable technologies, and your firm will have the proper foundation needed to serve any business and strategic plan, no matter how modest or how ambitious that you can conceive. So in the remaining few minutes I have here before we get to Q&A, I'm just going to race you through a couple of slides that are just screenshots from the BQE Core native cloud platform. It's just as an example of what I believe is the alternative to firms who are managing themselves with those spreadsheets or any standalone disconnected software tool, or certainly any of these obsolete software tools that also a lot of you had mentioned you are using. Here, we are assured that the data is always in real time, and since it's in a single source of truth, it's always accurate. So in this screen right now, I created a little dashboard. It looks at all the financials I have permission to access and I care about knowing. There is no mystery when one has a tool like this. I even have real-time access into all of our online bank and credit card accounts within this platform, meaning the numbers in front of my eyes are true, and I can make smart decisions about what I have to do in my firm to keep it safe, financially safe. My next little slide here is a dashboard that I created, which has widgets that tell me all about the things I care about personally. So in the upper left, I've got like a project status widget. It monitors the projects I'm, in charge of, and it's, looking at their budgets, and it looks like 5 of them are not, they have warnings next to 5 of them, so I got work to do. To the right of that, I can see the work that is being expected of me this month, and it's looking live into my time card, and it's reporting back, again in real time, how I'm doing compared to what was expected of me. The bottom rows, I have my to-dos. I have instant access to any document that might have been added to the project. Don't have to go looking for that. Hang on here, I'm going to the wrong one here. We'll just do that one right there. This is a team performance dashboard. I'm managing a group of people. There is never a reason to use a spreadsheet to do any regular business analytics. Having well-designed software that understands the business of the AE industry means you can use your time to do the kinds of things you were hired to do and what you really love to do, and what brings more value to both your firm and your client. This is the one I went to a little too soon. Task monitoring, I'll pass over that to get to the questions really quickly. This one is a good one. Here I'm looking at a project Gantt chart, and I can not only see what individuals and teams are working on, what kinds of activities over a timeline of the project. I can also see that those horizontal blue bars, they're getting darker in proportion to the amount of time that the team is working on those activities as they enter time into their time cards elsewhere in the system. This is, again, an example of how data in a single source of truth can be exploited to inform other areas of your business. Just imagine being a project manager, looking at your Gantt chart and seeing that it's just all light blue, meaning I've got a schedule, I got a milestone coming up, but nobody's actually been working on it. So I'm never going to meet that milestone, okay? Here I'm looking inside of what we call a project performance dashboard for the Pasadena Elementary School. I instantly see all the KPIs that allow me to understand, again in real time, how this project is performing from a financial perspective. And here we have a similar one, just it's a performance dashboard for a particular employee. Everything I need to know about how Jan is performing for any date range can be instantly understood on this screen without any effort other than a click of the mouse. The business intelligence being delivered through the software is telling me, for example, what the minimum hourly bill rate should be for Jan so that we could receive a 20% profit. It even calculated out what the ideal pay rate in the upper right is, what her ideal pay rate should be based on her utilization rate and her realization during that particular time period and what our profit expectations are. And notice, by the way, it's suggesting we pay her a base salary of $54 per hour. That's just about $110,000 or $12,000 a year. And I can also see that Jan delivered us a 20% margin during that period. I know that means what we paid her is in perfect balance with what we expect from her. We seek a 20% profit on every investment in our firm. I want to mention, I very often hear firms complain about how much time they have to spend creating reports for the principals or the partners or the project managers. It is a regular Groundhog's Day nightmare for those people who find themselves doing the same things week after week, chasing after employees to complete their time cards, analyzing project completion values, updating billing information, chasing after consultant expenses. It goes on and on. The amount of effort used is shameful, and the probability that that data is not really accurate is very high. The possibility that a calculated cell in your spreadsheet isn't formatted and the data is wrong. And finally, when these reports are made presentable and they are distributed, they are historical documents. You should never waste your time looking at information that cannot provide you with an opportunity to take action. Now, in this case, the RBQE Core Native Cloud is creating any report desired in seconds. So here I'm looking at a project profitability report. But the real thing that I want to mention is you shouldn't even have to bother running a report. The tool should understand that that report should be prepared and delivered to particular people on a schedule. So you create the schedule and then you forget about it. And in this case, this report will be delivered on the last Friday of every month at 8 a.m. via email to the two groups of employees who've been selected. I am going to eat into a little bit of the Q&A because I really want to talk about this. At the top of the webinar, I kind of discussed having a business thinking mindset, and I contrasted that against the standard business skills like accounting that a business owner should have command of. But they're really just the minimums kind of skills that most firm owners should possess. Most firm owners look at two financial reports every month. They look at the balance sheet and they look at the P&L or the income statement. Now, these reports in themselves, they're just snapshots in time, and they tell you if you have enough money or enough oxygen at that very moment. But they don't tell you about the supply needs for the future and if the oxygen is keeping pace with what your annual plan is. If your firm is not creating an annual financial budget, you are not alone. Once again, you are in that 75th percentile of your peers, which is to say, you get a solid C. What can help elevate you into a top performing firm is to not only create or review your strategic plan every year, but ensure that the plan will become manifest by budgeting for it. Make sure you can afford to execute on those organic growth objectives. Without this plan and without software that simplifies and automates so much of this back office stuff, you will have an impossible time getting a better grade than a solid C. And when you have the ability to manage a budget, whether it's on a monthly, an annually, or a quarterly basis, it means you finally have the ability to make plans. You're going to be able to report on performance against your budget, make some changes based on the good news or the bad news. You're going to find your weaknesses and you're going to see strengths. You're going to also get better at this over time. The more history you have of creating budgets and working towards them, It's really no different than when you work out with a personal trainer who's going to set some goals for you, and then they create the plan so you can achieve these things, so you can get healthy. So have systems in your firm that allow you to easily create and monitor your firm's budgets. The effort required to create a budget for the coming 12 months based on actuals from the last 12 months is simply a matter of a mouse click and maybe then tweaking some things based on what your objectives are. The last thing I'm going to mention before we get to Q&A is if your firm does not have access to all of your data 24/7 from any device, you are 10 years behind the times. Data is gold. It enables you to be in control. And when a problem is happening in your firm, you really want to know where it is so you can fix it. You don't want to wait until there's mold showing up on the wall to find out that you've had a problem behind there going on, a leak for months or weeks or years, and you could have fixed it and it would have been a whole lot better for you. Please research modern systems on the market today. Implement them well within your firm. The return on your investment will be stunning, but more importantly, you and the people you work with will have greater freedom. They will become more efficient, and ultimately they're all going to be a lot happier. So with that, we're going to move on to the Q&A. I apologize that we don't have a whole lot of time here, Tyler. I do always like to get the written questions, and I will answer those the questions in written form. I will respond to them, as I mentioned at the top, and everybody will be able to be sent a copy of the full, thoughtful written response. So Tyler, you want to hit me with a few questions before, oh, wait, maybe before we do that, there's one more poll question. If Emily, maybe you can just launch that. We don't need to share the results, but if anybody here would like to learn more about BQE Core, how it can help improve your firm and all the kinds of benefits I was talking about earlier. If you want a demo, you want a free trial, maybe you're already a customer, just let us know and we'll be able to get back to you with some more information. Okay, Tyler, what do we got going here?
Yeah, so now Stephen will answer some questions from the audience. Type your questions for the presenter in the Ask a Question box on your screen, and we'll get to as many questions as time allows. Questions that we do not get to today will be posted online at www.cscmag.com. And remember to download a certificate of completion or a copy of the presentation. Use the Event Resources tab on the left side of your screen. So it looks like we've got time to get to about one question here. And the first one we'll go with here is, does pro bono activity fit in? And what are the limits of pro bono work?
Oh, yeah. Well, obviously, not every firm would consider doing pro bono work. But if it is, it's generally considered part of your very own strategic plan. And you need to accommodate it within that budgeting. So the previous slide, I talked about your financial budgets. You will probably, just like you do for marketing, reserve funds to allow your staff to do that pro bono work. It's no different than any effort. Everything should be hitting your chart of accounts. So all the time that people spend doing pro bono work should be tracked back. And then since it's hitting your chart of accounts as work that's not billable work, you'll be able to monitor your investment in the pro bono activities. But it doesn't matter if it's pro bono work or any initiative in your firm. It should all be budgeted if you expect to be able to afford to do it and not just think you want to do it. And at the end of the year, you realize you never got it done.
Excellent. And then one more quick question. What are best practices for architects to work well with engineers to ensure proper seamless project execution for the benefit of clients?
Oh, yeah. So it's probably, I don't know if it's an architect asking this question or an engineer. Well, certainly communication. I'm a very strong believer in transparency. And I think all parties in business or all parties in life, the more transparent we are, the better off things will be. So the more communications you have, the more blocking of calendars so that you all regularly talk about things that are going on, what's not going well, certainly. The more people you can include in any of this, not just between the architect and the engineer, at certain times it could be contractors or any other consultants. To me, the key is communication.
Excellent. Thanks for the great questions. And thanks again to our speaker, Stephen Burns, for sharing his time and expertise. And I would also like to extend a special thanks to our sponsor, BQE Software, for sponsoring today's event. Now that we're just about done, we want to hear how we did. The exit survey will pop up on your screen as soon as the webcast ends. Please take a moment to complete it because we will use this information to improve these webcasts.
We did
Finally,
great.
on behalf of Consulting Specifying Engineer and CFE Media and Technology, I'd like to thank you for attending. This is the end of the webcast. Thank you and goodbye.